And after that, I was facing 15 to life. It was my third felony. They charged me as a kingpin, and I was like devastated.
So before we start, we like to light a little Palo Santo before each interview. It just
Awesome.
helps to cleanse the space, elevate the vibe, set a little intention that anybody who's watching at home who might be inspired by your comeback, this can help one person out there, then we're doing a good thing.
Okay.
Awesome.
So with that, we are here with coss marte. I'm going to turn it over to you. Tell us who you are and what do you do?
Yeah, so my name is coss marte again. I'm the founder of ComBody, and what we do is hire people coming out of the prison system to teach fitness classes. We have boot camp classes, and then we have a virtual on-demand platform that offers like boxing, stretching, yoga, and all the stuff, all the genres. And so there's where we're taking it, but primarily in person. And our live stream platform is like all like hit, no joke, no frills. It's just like nonstop work.
That's awesome. And so is everybody, all the instructors, everybody who works for you, they're all ex-cons?
Yeah, except for my CFO.
For anybody watching at home who doesn't know your story, you started selling drugs at a really young age. So take us back to the beginning. How did all of this get started?
Yeah, I mean, I got involved with the street life. I guess I was born into it, so like, I grew up in the Lower East Side, which was in the 80s and 90s. It was a very, very heavily drug infested neighborhood. There was gangs and all that stuff. But I had like cousins and family members that I looked up to, and they were already selling drugs on the corner, and that's what I aspired to be, and then my mom immigrated when she was 6 months pregnant with me, and I was born here. She came with nothing, and we lived basically on my aunt's couch, and that's how we slept together, and then we eventually, stepped up a little bit, but as a kid, I would ask her for stuff and I couldn't get it. And it would frustrate me. So it would frustrate me so much that I would go get it on my own, so I would do anything from like cleaning cars off of fire hydrants and collecting beer bottles from neighbor to neighbor to collect, exchange them in nickels in the store. And then the world of the drugs was always around. So like, it just, came to me. I really thought about selling drugs until it just came to me. It was like a supply and demand. Everybody in my school knew I was the one that was like smoking weed, hanging out, and like they all used to tell me like, hey, can you go down the block and get this for me? So I became that middleman, and then I became the supplier. And I told my cousin, give me an ounce, and from there, it just kept elevating. And then at 14, I started dealing with coke and crack, and then it just started expanding. And by the age of 19, I was making over $2 million a year. I had over 20 after the neighborhood got really gentrified, and it just blew up.
So at 19 years old, you're making over $2 million a year.
Yeah.
Was there ever a point where you considered getting out of it, or you thought that you kind of felt yourself getting out of control, or were you just like, I'm in this, I'm good?
Absolutely. I mean, like, absolutely. There was always ideas of like trying to get out, start my own business, clean the money and do other stuff. But when the money's like constantly keeps coming in and the service keeps coming in, and it's just like, it's a trap and a revolving door. It's like, when do I have time to like, put my head into doing something else? And I tried to get into like real estate when I was younger and all that stuff, and it didn't work out. And so I just kept moving on and kept, being trapped in that world. I didn't really see any way out except for like starting a business or something like that. But I didn't know what I was doing. I was just like continuing to make money. I thought I was doing it a slick way. I thought I was never going to get caught, even though I was caught a number of times as I was a kid and growing up. But yeah, that was my life.
What's something you wish you knew back then when you were like at the peak of all of this?
Something I don't know. I think if I would have known to be a little bit smarter, not belligerent, not obnoxious, you know, I loved messing around in the streets, had the cars and all this stuff, and then like the typical crazy, you know, spending money here and there, and I wish yeah, I don't regret it, you know, because it was an experience that I had fun and I experienced it, but I wish I would have been smarter. But it is what it is. I feel like everything happens for a reason. You know, I really don't have any good regrets. I wouldn't be in the place I am today, but all that stuff wouldn't happen.
You're obviously at the top of your game now as a 19-year-old making $2 million a year, but take us back to the point where all of that ended for you.
Yeah, I mean, I got incarcerated. I was arrested at 23 years old. So I had a little stint of time on the street and making money and all that stuff. But everything I did at 23. One of my workers basically tried to get greedy behind my back, and then his phones were being tapped by feds. And that's how it went down. You know, his phone went, and then somebody else snitched. Somebody told that I had a number of drugs in our stash house, and they saw me go into the stash house. They had a warrant, and they just came and knocked me. You know, and after that, I was facing 15 to life. It was my third felony. They charged me as a kingpin. And I was like devastated because I was like, damn, this is over. But I took responsibilities for my action, and I was like, you know, I'm not taking nobody down with me. And I just said, I did this, I started this, and I'm going to end it, even though it didn't end there. But it just kept going on. And then I was lucky enough to get a 12-year split sentence. So I had 7 years inside and 5 years parole. So
now take us back to, you find out you're gonna have to spend 7 years in prison. You're 23 years old. Like, what's going through your mind at that point?
Yeah, I mean, I was primarily thinking, I thought about my son's like life, you know. I fucked up his future, you know, and I was like, damn, like he's gonna grow up without a father, you know. I didn't know how much time I was gonna get at that time. My bail was crazy. They basically didn't give me an opportunity to come home, and yeah, I mean, it was heartbreaking to see him visit me, you know, in those visiting rooms, and have him cry there and asking like, why can't you come home, you know? And that was like the biggest thing that was like, I regret it, you know, and I felt like I did wrong to him. But I while I was in there, I was like, I gotta do what I gotta do to get out, you know, as soon as possible. So I was fortunate enough to get out pretty early and started doing what I was doing.
While you were inside, we did some research, and you apparently had a lot of health issues, and I believe you were like 70 pounds heavier than you are now, or at, you know, at the time. So take us back through what was happening physically to you.
Yeah, so it was crazy. I never thought I was like overweight, or I thought I had any like health issues. I don't know. I was pretty active as a kid. I was in sports and all that stuff. And as I started getting more involved in the street, I just started eating fast food, fried food, drinking, smoking, and, you know, doing whatever the fuck I want. And it just got really bad because when I went in, the physician sat me down after like 2 weeks in, and they took my blood work and all that stuff, and they were like, hey, you have high cholesterol, and if you don't eat correctly or start working out, that my cholesterol levels will probably kill me inside. So they said I probably had 5 years to live if I kept doing what I was doing. And I looked at them like, nah, I'm not gonna die. Like, I'm not gonna die in prison. I didn't think I was that bad. But they placed me on medication, and they were like, hey, we're gonna put you on this special diet. Basically, it's like giving you less crappy food, prison food. So it's not a good diet. They just give you less food and starve you. And they recommended me to start, like, I was always like a kid that always like to be active, play sports and all that stuff. So I was like, fuck walking, I'm gonna start running. And I couldn't run. It was hard. I was like running from one pole to the other, and it was just extremely difficult to like get myself, into the mode that I wanted to be. I was running from one pole, then walking, then one pole, and I'm talking about like the prison yard is about like a racetrack on. And then eventually I started running like 2 hours a day, nonstop. I was running pretty much a half marathon every day. And then I was doing like working out in my prison cell nonstop. So I was working about 3 hours a day.
That's amazing. How did you stay motivated during all that time?
Well, when they first told me that I had all this crazy stuff, like I went back to my cell and tried to like do push-ups, dips, and I was like, damn, I can't even do like 5 push-ups. I was like, this is way too fucking hard. And I laid back on my bed, and I remember, them calling the prison yard wreck the next morning, and I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna get up, and I kept, thinking about my kid and being home, and I think that's what primarily motivated me. And then also I had the time, so I had the time to do the time. I didn't really have any distractions. There's a lot of distractions in prison, with gangs and all this other crazy stuff that goes on in there, the jail politics. But I basically just like kept focused, interacted with a few people, but I didn't really, get involved with gangs and all that stuff while I was in there.
Obviously, before then, you were eating like any college kid, I feel like, just like fried drinking and doing whatever the fuck you wanted. So explain kind of like what your diet was and what changes you had to make, at this time.
Yeah, so I was trying to like really increase my protein, taking down a lot of like complex carbs that I was intaking. Stop eating like pasta, bread, all this stuff, and just try to. And I was primarily just like had like a pescatarian diet, for the most part. I was probably eating like fish 5 days a week, and then chicken. And so you really can't control your diet if you go into the mess hall, but if you have a little bit of money, you're allowed to like go to, commissary and get, canned food. So it was a lot of tuna, a lot of salmon, a lot of mackerel, jack mac, all that stuff, and everything in a can. So that was basically my diet. I was just putting a little bit of salt and pepper, throwing onions in there and all that stuff. You'd be surprised what you cook in prison. We were make like jig rigging like some hot pots. It's like some plastic hot pots and putting like metal coffee pots and melting them together, and then you put a little bit of oil to fry whatever you need to do in that pot. But people get creative. You'd be surprised how smart dudes are in there.
How did you learn, what to do for not only your diet, but also these fitness routines?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, the fitness routine, I was in shape when I was younger, and so I knew a lot of workouts, and it was not the first time I was incarcerated. So I did this program back when I was like 19 in prison to come home early. It was like a 6-month early release program, and It's called shock. And so they basically, it's like ex-Marines turned correctional officers, and they beat the crap out of you. They make you work out. So I took a lot of the exercises that I learned from there and started implementing with other exercises that I learned from other inmates. So I came up with a routine there. I wrote out a whole book. It's available on Amazon. So the whole workout routine, and actually my prison food menu is some of it. It's there as well. Also, some of the things that I was eating. But yeah, I mean, I took that and ran with it, and just kept doing it. Kept being consistent. As for food, I knew, like, a lot of people ask me, like, hey, what should I do for a diet? I'm like, yo, drop it. Fucking stop eating the fucking cake and fucking eat a salad. You know what I mean? So for me, it's just like self-explanatory. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, I don't know what to eat, blah blah blah. Just eat healthier, and make better decisions. The shit is there, eat more natural and stop eating all the stuff that comes in like boxes and stuff, so that is what it is.
So there was this pivotal moment that happened while you were incarcerated. You had this epiphany, and it happened while you were in solitary confinement. So take us back to that. What happened?
Yeah. Towards the end of my incarceration, I was about to be released in this early release program, and I had about 2 months left. And I remember the officer at the front desk calls me down, and he's like, hey, you have to report to the medical unit. And then I thought it was a dental appointment, because in prison you sign up for the dentist. You might not see the dentist for 2, 3, 4 years, just because there's not the resources are not there. So I'm like, yeah, I'm finally gonna see a dentist. 2 months left. I'm gonna get my teeth fixed. Blah blah blah. I'm coming home, and it didn't work out like that. They called me down for a random drug test, and so I was like, all right, I'm not using whatever. And before you take a drug test, officer searched me. So they do these like random searches, and before I went into the medical unit, and he started searching me. And I felt uncomfortable when he was going in between my legs. And then, so I like jerked my body a little bit. And as soon as I jerked my body, he punched me behind my head. And he told me, today's not my day, don't fuck with me. And he punched me hard enough that he knocked me down on the ground. And when I got back up, I turned around on him, not to attack him, but to try to avoid another hit. And as soon as I turned around, he pressed the button in the walkie-talkies, and they call it the pin. And so when they pull that pin, the whole alarm for the whole prison goes off. Any inmate that's around that scene, you have to hit the ground, hands on your head. And so I'm like, I started speaking to him, like, yo, why the fuck you did that? Like, I didn't do anything wrong, blah, blah, blah. And it was like, get down, inmate. He hit me. About a half a dozen officers came. They started stomping on me. They put me in shackles. And then they take me to solitary. It was not my first time in solitary, but it was like so devastating at the fact that I only had 2 months left. My son just finished seeing me. I told him I was coming home soon. My families are waiting for me. And it didn't go down like that. I ended up doing an extra year in that because of that situation. But while I was in that cell, all I could do was pace back and forth for that first few hours. And until this officer just came up to my cell, and where they feed you the food in the little slots in solitary, he passes me a paper pen and an envelope. So I quickly grabbed that and started writing a letter to my family, letting them know I'm not coming home. I got into the situation, and I'm probably gonna need a lawyer, blah, blah, blah. I wrote out a crazy letter explaining everything, detail for detail, to try to get somebody to defend me in this case. And then I realized I had no stamp to send out this letter with. And so I was even more devastated. I felt hopeless. And I remember sitting on my bed and just like banging my head on the wall, just like not knowing what to do. And I remember like a couple days went by, My sister, who's like mad religious, she like prays every 30 minutes. I call her Mother Teresa's child, and she tells me, we found out you're in solitary. I called the prison up. They found out because I was constantly calling home and they didn't hear from me. And she writes me a letter and tells me, read Psalm 91 from the Bible. And I was like, Bible? I don't need no fucking Bible. I need a lawyer, And at that point, I was like, fuck this. And I took her letter and I threw it in the corner of my cell. But the only thing that follows you around while you're in solitary or any transfer of prison is your religious items. And so I had this Bible that she gave me early on in my incarceration. This was like 3 years after. And after, sitting out of boredom, I decided to pick it up and read, turn to the pages that she told me to read, Psalm 91. And as soon as I was reading that, it said, he who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, he is my shelter and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. And as I was reading that, a stamp fell out of my Bible. Wow. And it was a crazy experience for me because I felt chills. I felt like there's something bigger than myself for that first time in my life. And I don't know, I just felt like there was like a sort of spiritual awakening, and I started just thinking in that cell, and I started reading the Bible from front to back. I read the whole thing, and just started really understanding what I was doing was wrong. That I was not only just affecting my family, but the thousands of people I sold drugs to, and those families that were affected by the drugs I sold. And I was like, I need to give back to society in some sort of way. And I was already helping the inmates in the yard work out and all that stuff. And I was like, hey, this is my passion. This is what I was loving, doing every day. I want to do this when I come home. So a light bulb just went off in my head, and I was like, hey, I'm going to start doing this. And while I was in there in 24-hour lockdown, I just started writing everything I wanted to do. And my whole workout routine, I basically wrote my book there, and I was released a year later from that situation, and came home and started doing what I wrote, and nothing stopped me. I just kept moving forward.
For anyone maybe that's not familiar with solitary confinement, can you describe like what that is, what that's like what the conditions, the experience of that whole thing?
Yeah, I mean, solitary is not a joke. I was in a 24-hour lockdown. You get 2 showers a week. Literally, like, they take everything away from you, and the cell that I remember, the cell I was in at that time, the water was coming out like little dribbles, so it was like the middle of summer. There's no AC, no fan, like literally you're suffocating in there. And like the door, the crack of the door of the cell has like a little crack, and they put a fan in the hallway to hit all the cells. And you're just like trying to stick your nose through that little crack to like really try to get a little bit of fresh air, and it's just a inhumane place. I don't feel like anybody should be in that situation or be placed for whatever they do. Especially in that the worst solitary confinement units in the state of New York, because you can't even speak to anybody. I've been in other solitary confinement units that you could like scream out your door and speak to the other cellmates, but this one you're just like not interacting with anybody. You basically like there alone in your thoughts, basically talking to yourself. I remember, just imagining shit and just thinking like, or even looking at the cracks on the walls and like, and thinking, just turning those little cracks into figurines. You know what I mean? Like it's just crazy.
How long were you there for?
In that cell, I was 30 days, but I spent a total of 8 months in solitary.
So what other things did you do other than just read the Bible? And, how did you keep yourself from going into a downward spiral and instead use this time to, be productive and write down your thoughts and get creative? Like, what did you do during this time?
I kept a routine. I remember like waking up, working out, taking a slow as bird bath. So basically you get a little washcloth, you get a little soap, you don't get a shower. So, you're just wetting the little towel with the little drip of water that's coming out, and taking a slow ass shower, we call it a bird bath with a little sink. And then I was writing a lot. And then I would like probably eat very slowly. I just had time to kill. And then I was just reading. And that's how basically I spent like all that time, was just like working out, taking a slow ass shower or bath or a bird bath, and eating very slowly. And then sleeping a lot, like there's nothing else to do, like you're just looking at the wall. And so you're either reading or writing or working out. I mean, it's, but I've been in other solitary confinement units where we got creative and you're like playing games with other inmates across the cell, I remember we used to play chess, by telling people, hey, move your pawn to like A1 to A3, and then that inmate would build a chessboard out of like toilet paper, so we would form like little small pieces of rooks and knights and all that stuff. So you just do stuff to kill time, but at that certain time, like I was just there by myself, so I had nothing else to do.
So after you get out of the solitary confinement, how much longer was it until you eventually got to go home?
Yeah, so it took me about a year, 11 months to come home. And I remember being released from the cell and going back to general population. And I remember telling one of the inmates that this happened to me while I was in solitary, and dude looked at me like I was crazy. He was like, how much time you did in solitary? You're bugging right now. Like, you had a spiritual awakening, like, get out of here. And I was ashamed to tell that story to anyone, I just felt like if people are going to think I'm crazy. But yeah, I mean, I came home after a year, and everything that I wrote out in that paper, I did it the next day. I basically went out to the park where I grew up at. I went back to my mom's building. I had to be paroled back to my mom's apartment. And the Lower East Side, the same building I grew up in. She still lives there. And I started doing the workouts right across the street. That was another thing. A lot of people thought I was crazy because I was, a person that they saw making so much money and driving cars and all this crazy stuff. And then they see me doing these workouts, trying to get them to work out with like a broken piece of pipe, between fences, doing pull-ups and stuff like that. And I felt a little bit embarrassed, but I was like, fuck it. I know this is going to work out. I'm going to push this idea to the max. And I know it's going to, all it's going to take is consistency and hard work. And I kept showing up every single day. I mean, it's been 8 years now since my release, so it's been a crazy journey.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was like the craziest part about not only getting released, coming back? I'm sure there were so many new things and changes, and then especially the fact that you came back to the same place that you were living in, the same environment that you were this big kingpin.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so like, how was that transition?
Yeah, I mean, the transition was not easy. I think the biggest thing was like technology. You know, I went in with a flip phone, came out with a touchscreen, and Instagram and Facebook. I had no idea what that was, you know, and I feel like today, if you don't have any of that, you don't really exist in the world. You don't know what's going on. But I came home and I thought, like, I remember, you know, seeing touchscreen things before I got incarcerated, and those were like the iPods, the first iPods that came out, you know, and I was like, people just listening to like the MP3 players, you know what I mean? And it was just a crazy experience, but it felt, it was a little bit nauseating. Yeah, I don't know. It was just like the world was moving so fast that I really couldn't catch up. You know, even getting on the subway, and having people didn't even sit up and look at each other. It was just like everybody looking down on their phones. I remember feeling dizzy when I went on the subway for the first time. Just a crazy, fast-moving, paced world, and I don't know. It took me a little bit of time to like readapt, but I was hungry, and I discovered Google and YouTube, and just started like doing how to this, how to that, and just like self-teaching myself, you know, how to use all these new applications or whatever it was, you know, and figured it out.
Kind of talk us through from that moment when you're released and you're doing this in the park and you're just telling yourself you're going to be consistent about it, to now you've obviously been super successful over the last 8 years. So talk us through that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, coming home and starting in the park, it was not easy. You know, I had no facility. I had to do this like rain, sleet, snow. I was just showing up there nonstop, and I just didn't care. Like I just knew that if I kept that same mentality that I had while I was in the street, you know, so I basically took those like same transferable skills. You know, I didn't start like making millions of dollars, you know, day one selling drugs. I started making a couple bucks, you know, sitting on a corner in a milk crate, you know, selling crack and stuff. And but as I was consistent and kept showing up and kept delivering a great product, it just kept growing, you know. And there was times where I was like, had clients coming by and they were like, hey, we're gonna show up tonight, and didn't show up. And so I'm like out there by myself waiting. I'm like, fuck it, I'm gonna get my own workout in, you know. And then I remember I felt like some sort of success when I had like 5 people outside, and it was like a spring day, and it was like blue skies, a little bit of clouds, and I'm looking up at the sky and I'm like, fuck, I made it. I got 5 people out here. I made like $100, you know. And it was just I don't know, it was like those little moments, you know, reaching those small goals, you know, got me through those like and I mean, today we've trained over 50,000 people. I literally hired my 50th person on, well, was it 2 weeks ago now, and we have a 0 recidivism rate, so no one has gone back into the prison system. And so it's just been a crazy experience, and a lot of barriers, but a lot of people in the community, a lot of people coming, you know, towards our space, you know, just wanting to help and wanting to get back. And I think we broke down a lot of stereotypes of, you know, formerly incarcerated people and what people see on the media. You know, most often people see like these killers and everybody in prison's a rapist and all this dumb media, you know, propaganda. And the reality is that just people want to like go in there, do their time, and get the fuck out, you know, and readapt back into society. But it makes it very, very difficult, you know, with the limited opportunities, just the limited programs, and you just feel lost in the world if you don't have any guidance.
Was there anybody when you came out that kind of helped you or supported you as you were starting this second chapter?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just took advantage of a lot of programs out there. I actually like went out there and searched for opportunities. Even though I was, knocking on all the doors trying to find any type of job, I was just trying to get some type of money in the door. I remember going like to Herald Square, Times Square, like, went from store to store and filling out all these applications and checking those boxes like you mentioned before, and like, saying I've been convicted of a felony, and handing over those applications over to those managers. I just knew that they were not going to call me back, and I just saw it was very deterrent, like to hear like, hey, we're going to call you back, but see their body language like stare at the top line that says, have you ever been convicted of a felony? And I just knew that they were not going to call me back, but there was a few programs that helped me, because there's still not enough assistance out there that's helping the criminal justice space. But I took advantage of Fortune Society, which is like one of the largest nonprofit organizations in the city, to help me build my resume, help me like just get a few job interviews here and there. They helped me get a little internship at the Goodwill, and then I was just doing side jobs. I had a friend that had like a cleaning company, so I was like cleaning apartments left and right. I was moving whatever I needed to move, helping, like just doing a lot of under the book stuff. If anybody needed something, I was there. Like I was just like that handyman to do anything, to get some money in the door legally. Illegally, because I was not paying taxes on it. But I was just making a few bucks, so it was nothing crazy. And I just kept moving forward like that, as I was doing like type of dollar during the day, to do something. And plus my mom was charging me like rent for the couch I was sleeping on. So I had to cover that. But yeah, I took advantage of Fortune Society, and then I also took advantage of this program called Defy Ventures. Defy Ventures helps people coming out of the prison system start their own companies. So they believe that people have their motto is like transform your hustle. They have that transferable skills to take it from the street to doing it legally. And so it was like a whole year MBA program. As I was doing it alongside the stuff I was doing in the park, or any type of job I was doing. And I was just studying business and learning how to build spreadsheets, all the crazy stuff that I had to learn. It was basically like an MBA course that I took, and just kept doing it. And those were like primarily the two programs that really helped me out. And in that program, there was a mentor his name was Michael Rothman. Mike, schooled me, and like he's just been an extreme, insane amount of help in my life. It was somebody that really elevated me. I feel like if I didn't have that mentorship, I wouldn't be in the position I'm in right now. And he's like a bigger brother to me, and somebody I really look up to. He's a business entrepreneur, sold a couple companies, and somebody that I want to become one day.
That's amazing. So we know Conbody's reached a lot of milestones since those days in the park.
Yeah.
I guess what was the turning point where you were like, wow, this is actually like I've made it?
I don't know if I like reached that point yet. I feel like every day I'm just like putting my head down and just running and doing the work, the work that needs to be done. But there's been a lot of, success points, like winning pitch competitions. It was extremely difficult to like find any type of like financing. I couldn't go to a bank to get money, because of my background and all that stuff. And so it was extremely difficult. So like I was doing like all these SharkTank type of pitch competitions around the city, and I remember winning one that like Barbara Corcoran from SharkTank herself was hosting, and I won that, and it was like I felt like I made it then, but I just kept pushing forward, you know, and figuring it out and doing what I had to do. I don't know. Every day is like and it hasn't been like just like a straight hockey stick going up. You know, it was definitely a roller coaster. You know, it's, you know, times where I like lost all the money in the company and had to, you know, start from the ground up. You know, and have the team like deal with, you know, late payroll and all that stuff, and then coming back up and, you know, doing what we have to do to elevate that. And I think that's what made our team stronger for sure. You know, because we suffered together, and we made it a success together. You know.
I think the pandemic has affected everyone in that industry, and so I'm sure.
Yeah.
That was the whole news setback.
Yeah. Virtual and.
Yeah, I mean, we took advantage of the virtual stuff. It definitely, you know, worked for us because our program is all body weight. And you could do it in a small space. And so like, it was perfectly suitable for like people to just do it, you know, turn on their Zoom cameras and like get in there. You know, I've had people that want to lose weight, gain strength. You know, I have people that weigh 350 pounds, you know, and I have people that weigh 100 pounds and do it, you know, and still struggle. But it's all basically you're trying to keep up with the instructor and just pushing yourself to the next level. I mean, that's how we do it.
What's something that no one tells you about this kind of comeback and adapting to real life after all your experiences being away?
Yeah, I mean, getting back to like the technology part, that was a crazy deterrent. Like you know, while you're in there, there is like a transitional program. I think that's what they call it, like where they help you like make your cover letter and a resume, and you're literally using like a number 2 line pencil and like drawing lines and like this is what you're supposed to come out with, you know, like it's crazy. But there's no real assistance inside to prepare you for the real world. There's programs now that are going in, but not enough. But the state of New York has about 60 prisons, a little bit over 60 prisons across the whole state, and there's probably 5 prisons that get, you know, programs that help you transition, and it's mostly the prisons that are closer to New York, and that's just stuff that is happening now. Like there was nothing back then, you know, so there's not much, you know, help or people telling you about the real life, you know. There's other inmates, you know, that you look up to as mentors, and especially the older guys that have been there for 20, 30 years, you know, you just hear them and you feel appreciative that you have a chance to come home, you know, because a lot of these guys won't come home, you know, and they're doing life or they're gonna miss 40, 50 years out of their life, you know, after they come out. And like to deal with that, it's got to be crazy, you know. And I met so many people like that, you know.
Mentally, is there anything that you did when you got out to like stay strong, stay motivated, stay positive? Mm-hmm. When it's so easy, you come back, you feel like you missed out, you're so behind. Anything that kind of helped you make that adjustment?
For me, it was just like family. I felt like everything was going to be okay. I didn't care about riches. I didn't care about money. I just wanted to like be with family and just like try to support them as much as possible. And I didn't want to go back to the world of drugs. I didn't want to do any negative work. And I just kept my head on tight and like knew that no matter what, anything was going to be provided for me. You know, I was going to wake up somewhere. I was going to be okay. I was going to take a shower. I was going to eat okay. You know, I'm going to go back home to my mom and she's going to cook me a good meal, you know, and have the best food in the world. And that was it, you know, like I have clothes and even if I didn't have all the stuff I wanted, I had something and I knew I was going to wake up and everything was going to be provided for me. You know, I didn't have to go back. There was no necessity for me to go back. And even if I felt that it way, I knew that some way, somehow, there was going to be an opportunity to come out of that, you know.
If you had never started Conbody,
Mm-hmm.
what would you be doing today?
That's a good question. I never got that question, but I don't know. I think I would have been maybe working any type of job. I don't know. I have no idea. I came out with one mindset, and that was to start Conbody and just keep moving with it. But I don't know. I think I want to start other ventures as time goes along and Conbody elevates.
So our last question for you is just, what are your final words of wisdom for Team ELEVARI, anyone watching this at home?
Yeah, if anybody's watching this at home, you know, come do the time with me. Check out Conbody. Please support, you know, anybody that's coming out of the prison system. I feel like with every person that gets involved and listens to, you know, people that are coming home and wanting to readapt, I feel like it's really changing people's perceptions. And we need to figure out a way to rebuild the system. You know, the system was built a certain way, especially it's been a crazy racial system that we need to, you know, rebuild from the ground up. But I feel like with everybody, you know, not only supporting me, but also supporting nonprofit organizations doing this work, you know, I would really appreciate it. Anybody that I recommend to do that. And if you want to start your own business, like, make sure you just push yourself to that next level and know that that you're the only person that's gonna make it work or make it die. You know, like, I feel like the only way, you know, this can end is if I quit, you know. And so that's the mentality that you have to have if you're gonna start a business.
I love that.
I love that.
Yeah, super inspiring.
That's it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so
Yeah,
much.
thank you.